Welcome to the Beauty and Battle podcast, where we talk about winning in marriage by waging a war. I'm Jason Benham. I've got my girlfriend / wife, Tori Benham, with me, and we are here to talk to you about how Satan tries to get you to fight face to face with your spouse, but God designed you to fight shoulder to shoulder against Satan so that you can win in your marriage. Fighting together draws you together. We cannot wait to jump in. So here we go. Okay, so we're really excited to have Eric and Rachel Beck today. I just said Eric and Rachel Beck today.
Back with Beck.
Yeah, back with Becks.
Eric and Rachel Beck are back with us today. And now the last time you were here, we talked about how to connect deeper with your spouse, and it's one of our top listened to podcasts. So
Yes.
Everybody loves you guys.
We're so glad you guys are back.
Since
so
you guys
fun.
came in and you're staying in our little suite off the house and we're eating good food, we thought, you know what, we're going to take advantage of this and do some podcasts with you guys. So I'm excited about our topic today, and I think that you're going to be really excited because we're going to talk about how to establish a really good, healthy marriage culture.
Yeah.
These two have knocked it out. So Eric and Rachel are doing some really good things, and instead of Tori and I just asking them questions without having microphones in front of our face, we decided we're going to ask some questions while we have microphones in front of our face so you guys can hear their answers. But before we get going,
We've got a great joke today.
Tori's got some jokes.
Yep, and it's from Ashley Cooper, her sweet daughter, Ellie. Thank you, Ellie, for this awesome joke. What makes you rosy all over?
What?
Being tickled pink.
Oh, that's good.
I thought it was so cute. Little Ellie wanted to send her joke in.
Good job, Ellie. Good job. Tickled pink. There you go, Eric.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a line you like to use, I know.
A lot. I do. I
You
won't
can
lie.
use that anytime. Your wife will love it.
Yeah, I love this.
Exactly.
And you know what? I'm going to kick it off to Rachel. So Eric, she's going first.
Yes.
Let's talk about establishing a good marriage culture. What do you mean by that?
I feel like it's the tone that you take in the way you speak, but also the way that you kind of set your standards for the way you behave in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit of how you present yourself.
Yeah.
It's how you connect with the other person, and it's really appreciating them rather than taking them for granted, but really investing in winning them and bringing your A game instead of your leftovers.
I
Whoa.
love that. I love that. That's so good.
We actually just talked about that. I forget which
Yep.
podcast where we talked about you've got to keep pursuing your spouse. Like you've got to win them. And you just said,
Well, you were talking about conquest.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That was the last one.
Right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
conquest, which is the act of conquering. It's the process of conquering. You never really conquer, but you're in the process of doing that. So you just said, bring your A game. Like she's pulling out some good locker room talk there.
She is.
What do you think about that, EB?
Well, I think it's right because I think, speaking of conquest, sometimes the conquest seems like, we propose,
Mm-hmm.
they say yes.
Right.
Conquest.
Yep.
And then it's the slow, steady drive down into normal.
Right.
Then it gets into overly familiar. Then it gets into the kind of resentment, and then that direction, And I feel like if we view it as like, well, it's done now,
Yeah.
then it will be done.
Right.
Then it's really going to start to fall apart. Instead of the idea of being, okay, now I want her to want me, right? I want to be desirable, but also transforming that into what do I want me to be that I'm so proud of? What am I going for in the development myself? And it seems to be that one of the most amazing parts of magnetism is the person who is committed to their development, brings an energy that's not just about the other person. And I feel like, I don't know, A-framing where you have the two people are leaning on each other in a way that's unhealthy for like validation and like, I'm not really sure if I am good or worthy
Right.
unless the other person's responding a certain way.
Wow.
And then what happens is we start doing things to get that response, and then we're off mission. And then we're basically just trying the conquest of ego all the time. Like I feel insecure, so I'm going to do this thing to feel more secure for my partner who makes me feel secure.
And hopefully they'll validate me.
Right.
This thing I do.
Instead of I am learning how to be even more and more who I am in the safety of this relationship. You know what I mean? So that creates a conquest of what's that? Is it Napoleon Hill or who has the quote about if you don't conquer self, you'll be conquered by self?
Oh, wow.
And I feel like that there's a core to the marriage culture, which is we are both running the race together individually. So
Wow.
the third element of the relationship, right, is the relationship. But if she goes away, the relationship goes away. If I go away, the relationship goes away. But together, we're still our two individual selves, but there is a third thing we create together. In music, it's called an overtone. If you have two notes in harmony, you can hear a third note that no one is playing. It's like a phenomena of
Oh my
of
goodness.
sound waves.
Really?
And it's mathematical. It's totally cool. Super
Wow.
cool. But
You're such a geek.
wow, it's true.
That's such a good
He's
like.
full of cool facts.
It's just a way to set up
Geek
the whole
fact.
thing about we make beautiful music
Yes.
together.
You
Boom.
set that up perfect.
Tickled pink.
Yeah.
So,
Very nice.
yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay, so here would be the natural question. How do we create this synergy? How do we create this good culture? So Eric, I think what you're leading into is something that we talk about in the book. Before you can have oneness, you have to have two-ness.
Yeah.
Both of you have to be whole in terms of your individual relationship with the Lord. So then you can come back together. You don't want to A-frame it.
That's
which
it.
I love that. I'm going to use that and I'm going to steal it.
Do it.
And I'll give you credit for about the first 2 or 3
Nah,
weeks.
don't. I think
Then
I
I'll
got it
steal
from
credit.
somebody else. So
Where you're leaning up against each other and you need validation from each other rather than recognizing I'm a whole individual, whether my spouse validates me or not.
that's right.
Now I'm going to do everything I can to love them
That's right.
regardless.
That's right.
So if that's the case, Rachel, what do we do about creating this marriage culture and this synergistic environment that we can have where two can accomplish more together? But they're fine on their own, but man, they want to be together and they can do more together.
That's so good. Well, I think it certainly starts with each individual just committing to a lifetime of growth. And there's no area in my life where I feel like I've nailed it and I'm done. Like I'm always looking at how I can grow, how I can do better, and be more aligned with who I'm meant to be. And I think if each spouse is in that frame of mind, they're going to continually do that, which is different than being relentless in a like oppressive way.
Right.
You're like, it's never good enough. It's not that. It's like, I'm so grateful for right now. And I'm so excited about what the next expression is.
Yes.
Like a 2-year-old is amazing.
Right.
But a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, they're all different phases. So you don't have to reject what you've been
Right.
to embrace the fullness of what you can come into. And I feel like as we mature as men, as women, the phases go, like the fullness of who I am in my 40s versus my 50s.
Wow.
I couldn't be the fullness of who I am in my 50s without finishing the lap in the 40s. So it's that idea of, it's like a very gracious but relentless pursuit of growth.
Yes. Yep.
And the ability to recognize that in your partner. Because if you want to water that transformation, really taking the time to highlight the growth that you're seeing, to speak life into them, and that you have that culture where you're continually looking for, where are we growing as a couple? Let's celebrate that win. 5
That's
years
good.
ago, we would not have handled that situation that beautifully.
I love
And-
the celebrating the wins. You have to celebrate the wins. I love that.
It's so good. And doing that as individuals too, because you're really watering. Eric has this phrase, water the flowers, starve the weeds. It's like, how can you water the flowers in your beloved?
Right.
Like, wow, I see how much you've grown. I saw that pause that preceded that mature response. I know you've been working on that.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Right.
Like I'm so admire that. And you're on each other's team, looking for the wins.
Yeah.
And you are holding yourself to that standard, fall 6 times, get up 7. It's not about perfection, but it's truly about not giving up in the face of, wow, I haven't figured that one out yet.
Right.
But it's like, I'm going to back up on the horse and we're going to get it next time, or at least closer.
Yes. I love that. I was going to ask you guys, was there like an aha moment in your marriage where you desired this for your relationship more? Or was there like an aha moment where it's like, we really need to pursue one another again. We really need to get back into who we were. Did you guys ever kind of lose yourselves in life and in your relationship where it was like,
There They're the Becks. They're perfect. They're perfect, right?
It's been like an ebb and flow. I mean, I feel like we'll have a launch forward, and then there might be a plateau or a setback.
Yeah.
But there's a relentless remembering where to return.
Yeah.
And I feel like something that drew us together is that we're both really hardworking idealists. So we're idealists, but it's not like we think it's just going to happen.
Right.
Oh, right.
But we don't change our ideals.
Yeah.
We just have to keep working towards the high calling.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there have been we've had all the seasons.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is it's almost like you're going to hit the wall. You have to. And then sometimes you hit it and you're like, ooh, that wasn't good. But you kind of know what to do.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you hit the wall and you're like, that's not good. I'm not really sure what to do.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the investing in yourself, like we were talking about earlier, it really matters because we're trying to bring clarity to each other, not for the other person. Like it doesn't help if I try to help Rachel get clear on something. In other words, we call it therapizing each other. Like it's the dynamic is not, I'm here to show you and help you improve, and you're here to show me and help me improve. It's more like you're working as hard as you can on improving. I'm working as hard as I can on improving. And when it shows up as a home run, we're cheering each other on. And then what happens is, and I don't mean silence in the bad way, but the non-cheering is also the affirmation of like,
oh yeah,
you kind of missed it. You know what I mean? Because you know what I mean? Instead of like, wow, that was terrible, or this was awful, or I'm so upset about this. It's just, you can just feel the change in the energy that is actually much more powerful than the criticism. Because when the criticism comes, it puts everybody in the position to defend and to go back and forth. But in terms of like a turning point and whatnot, I think, like Rachel was saying, the different seasons matter. You know, the season of the first child,
right,
or the season of launching a business, or the season of a move. You know, those physical changes and kind of reality changes do always bring up, you know, the thing. And I do like to think of marriage in a good sense as the perfect training ground for you to unearth the things you don't know you're still walking in. Like that's going to be the thing that draws it out. In some ways obvious, but in some ways, you know, subtle. And I think having that culture where you're like, if it means this much to you, whatever the opinion is or the situation, like this was terrible, we totally shouldn't do this. What I've found through the school of hard knocks is like, if it means that much, it doesn't matter if I don't see it. Like if the alarm bell's going off on my partner, but it's not going off in me at all, or it's just going off a little. Yeah. It's really important to be like, well, you got to trust in the viewpoint. You know what I mean? And I think as men, we always want to get the explanation. Oh yeah. So you think I shouldn't do this? Why? And so we want to get and then we can go, well, that wouldn't happen. And then this thing would happen. And a perfect example of this happened recently where we were traveling. I don't know if it was to the airport for this trip or it was something like that. Basically where Rachel was like, I'm not sure we'll have enough time to do this. And I was like, well, yeah, we will. And I listed out all the reasons why. And none of the things that she said might happened, but it still didn't work the way that I thought it would work out. Right. So the net result was we weren't late, but the series of things that were going to happen still didn't happen. And I think that's something that's so important for the masculine brain, which is to say your partner may know exactly the right thing and have no ability to explain it to you. It's never that she has no ability, but in a way that you could understand. Right. Because you're like 1 + 2 does not equal 9. And so it can't be 9. And then an hour later it's 9. Wow. And it's like they knew. Right. But they don't know in a plan that can get inserted into the man brain. Right. So I think part of the marriage culture that is really exciting is being able to go, it's like I just got this magic word that has no explanation, and I get to watch and see how this actually plays out. Right. Because our conversation is most of the time she's exactly right. Right. It's like it did happen exactly what you said. Like, and it's a little bit mind blowing. You're like, what? You know, so ignoring that, which I have done plenty, right? You know,
because it doesn't make sense. Right, you had it figured out.
Right, right, and also, well, explain it to me. Well, I don't really know. It's just kind of a feeling. I'm like, well, I can't really act on feelings. I got to act on a plan, baby. So we're going to go from 1 to 2, and then it's like, no, you're not. And I think part of that is that God will not tell us as men, or maybe you guys as women, certain things he wants to tell us through the other person.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's like, no, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell you through her.
You need to honor her.
And you have to honor her and open up your ears and back down your ego.
Wow.
And be humble and go, you're going to get the answer and you're not going to get the map.
Yeah.
Which is so cool because it just screams how much God values relationship.
Yeah.
You know, that's amazing.
That's actually a really good paradigm. That God says, I want to say something to you, but I'm going to say it through your spouse. And I'm going to have them say it in a way that might not make sense to you. But if you honor them as your spouse and you do it, watch what happens.
Yeah.
I have made a few hiring mistakes in my day when Tori said, I don't know what it is, but I feel something. And I'm like, well, that's not good enough for me.
They're qualified. Look at their record. Look at all this stuff, right?
Right.
But I did want to go back to something you said because I thought it was very important in a very good way. You said you and your wife, like maybe were on your way to the airport or something, and you said, hey, we got time for this. And she said, no, I don't think we have time. You're like, no, we do have time. Listen, Eric, if you want to go parking before you go to the airport, you have to leave 3 hours early. Right? So I see what you were trying to talk about.
I'm still learning.
You know, I heard this great quote on one of our podcasts that we had on our Expert Ownership podcast several years ago from a guy named John Gordon. And he said, in the absence of communication, negativity fills the void, which is so true.
That's right.
So if we're going to create a good culture in our marriage, we have to talk about communication. So Rachel, let's say you brought up a great point the last time you were on the podcast where you said sometimes Eric might not be acting like the man Eric, he might be acting like the boy Eric. And I love that line because it is so true. How do you communicate to your spouse to keep that culture vibrant when he might not be acting like the guy you married?
That's such a good question. And it could be asked in the reverse for sure.
No.
No.
Tori never does anything that acts like little Tori.
It definitely comes from a decision to have a generous heart and to be in that awareness of like there, but for the grace of God go I.
Yeah.
Whenever our partner is not behaving like the man we married, it is easy to be so like sidewinded. What's the word?
Yeah.
You get knocked over.
Yeah.
And you kind of lose your bearing. And the bearing is, I know who you are in Christ. And I choose to see this as an apparition.
Yeah.
And the more you fight the storm, the longer it lasts. It's like kind of like standing and there's a wave coming and it knocks you over. But if you can gently dive under, it's actually quiet under there. And when I have the grace and the discipline and awareness to just kind of go quiet, just jump under the wave, it rolls past. And I have found it's very quick for him to self-correct and go, I'm sorry, that came out wrong.
Yes.
Or can we have a do-over or whatever? But there's a reset option where the force on force, where you just attack and you name it. Sometimes you do need to be quite direct and say, this is what's happening.
Right.
But more often I found the most effective approach is actually, as Eric was saying, it's almost like in karate, instead of receiving the punch, you just pivot to the side. And so now they're not actually even making contact. It's brushed past you. So how do you pivot? How do you not receive it? So it's not that you're being the punching bag, but you're just taking the stance of, like he said, sometimes just not replying. Just let there be silence. If there's something harsh said or something that's out of alignment, just to let that no response. Yeah. And sometimes the space of that creates the wake up to go, oh, okay, wait a minute. Let's do something different.
Wow. I love that analogy about the wave. That's a good one. That's a great one to remember. Get underneath and wait for it.
Yeah.
That's really good. When the kids were little and things got really crazy, I would want to vacuum because I could drown out the noise. And that became like my therapy moments.
But now our dog Rocky doesn't let her vacuum. If she vacuums, he goes crazy. It's pretty cute.
Yeah. But just looking for a way to kind of drown things out and wait until I'm calm.
Yeah, well, that's like good self-awareness, because sometimes we do things to soothe ourselves that we don't know that's why we're doing it.
Right.
And I think when your partner recognizes, oh, she's vacuuming, it doesn't need to prompt oh, hey, what's wrong? It just needs to prompt, something's up.
Yep.
And so I'm just now aware. There's not necessarily something to do.
Right.
But the awareness, and I also feel like, I don't know where this phrase comes from, but have you guys heard the phrase like holding space for each other?
No.
Okay. So it's like the idea of saying, like when somebody, and again, Jason, you just great. When someone is telling you something, you create a listening environment by the way you interact with them that makes them feel so at ease. And then the next thing they want to say is easier. And it's like you're giving them the space, but you're fully attentive to them.
Wow.
So we're not getting on the stage with them, but we're aiming the lights at them and giving them the mic and doing all the things that help them speak. So it's like holding space. Like I'm going to hold this container for you to kind of go crazy because you're so frustrated about this thing at work or something happened.
Right.
But we're not diving in to fix it. And we're not diving in. And again, every relationship has their differences. Probably with Rachel and I kind of want to dive in and fix it. Of
course.
And she tends to want to dive in and find out why. And those are great. That's really great. But it's not really great for the connection at that moment because that's still the wave cresting. And if it's a lot of powerful emotion, generally that's like loud fear. You've heard that phrase, anger is loud fear.
Yeah.
And so like, wow, I'm so angry about this. And it's like, boy, if you match that energy, it doesn't bring us back to being grounded. And I think it's when that energy gets out of balance that we do go back to either a younger or a traumatized version, the smaller self. We're not being led by the spirit anymore. We're being led by our historic wounds or those sorts of things. And so I think one of the most loving things that happens is I can hold space for you while you're being really immature. And I don't need to tell you you're being immature. And I'm not going to run away from you because, this smells bad. Get away. Because that's its own kind of reproach or whatever the right word is there. Correction. And you're like, but being able to be in the energy of that moment and not judge it. And like Rachel said, let the wave come and go. Yeah. And then when that happens, it is amazing how much the person will just go, I'm probably really overreacting, aren't I? And then all you have to do is kind of smile and go, well, yeah, but I get it. Yeah. And then it's like, it's like now I have so much space to learn from that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then I feel like that's what you just added another book to the library of your relationship. Wow. And you're like, okay, I feel like it's a little bit like, okay, I got that bill and I paid for that bill. Yeah. So every time that comes up again, I've already paid for that one. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like the hope in a marriage is not like, oh my gosh, there's unending problems. It's like, well, what if there's 1,000 problems and that was just 792 paid? You know what I mean? And now we've got that in our bag of tricks. Yeah. And so that's what's hope for the future is we're not hoping for a no conflict future. Yeah. We're just hoping that every conflict we can really pay for it and get the value out of it. Wow. And then we've transformed it. And I think that's the message of the cross is we're transforming the terrible thing into the great thing, the redemption.
Wow. That's really good.
Yeah. I love that. And that reminds me of Larry Hubatka, who's one of the guys with us at Expert Ownership, and he wrote a great book on culture. And I'll botch the definition, but he basically says that, good culture is all about reinforcing beliefs, behaviors, and values through experience, amplified by emotion. So you have to create like experiences, emotional experiences for yourselves, as a married couple or as your family or whatever, that reinforce your beliefs, your behaviors, and values that line up with those, with your principles. And I just love that. And of course I botched it, but still you kind of get what I'm saying.
Really
yeah. So the question for each of you, and I want each of you to take turns answering this. How do you create that environment of peace that reinforces your beliefs, your behaviors, and your values by creating experiences in your own family? Like, what do you do? Like, I'll just say one thing that we like to do, just from an extremely uber practical thing. At night, low level lighting, like no overhead lights on, just lamps with some type of soft music, preferably the TV off. There is no such thing as channel surfing, in the house, period. Awesome, of course, cable's going away, but still. Yeah. So that is one thing that is like a culture that we want when it's nighttime. And now we're going up and finding our kids, no computers open, laying on their bed, listening to Kenny G or Yanni or Enya or something.
It's very actually addicting. Like we see it in our kids that's what they're kind of drawn to.
Because we wanted a culture of peace in our house. So we started doing that, and now our kids are. So Rachel, start with you, and then we'll go to Eric. What have you done to create a culture of peace in your house? Because that's what we all want.
Yeah, it sure is. I think having an environment that is not a gotcha culture where everyone is like looking for the offense.
Yeah.
But it's like the language that we choose, I think, is really important. When I was a little girl, I had the great blessing of being taken care of by a young married couple. And 5, 10, 15 years in, the husband would always refer to his wife as my beautiful bride. He'd say, my beautiful bride has dinner ready. And it's 30, 40 years in, and they still refer to each other this way. So I really make an effort to make my default language cherishing. Because when people feel cherished, it just takes 20 things off the table.
Yeah.
You know, there's not that defensiveness.
Yes.
And there's a feeling of being seen and loved.
Wow.
Having an environment where people can make mistakes and those are not going to be unnecessarily paraded.
Yeah.
But it's going to be gently corrected with the eye of moving forward.
Yeah.
The whole purpose is about, I'm on your team. We are moving here. No big deal. We all stumble. What's the next step? And how can I make you feel confident that I'm not going to shame or hold you in the past? One of the things I think is huge is that I remember once I was really grieving and God said to me, you can either have all your pain or you can have the healing of the future, but you only get you can only grab one thing.
Wow.
Which would you prefer?
Oh gosh.
Wow.
You know? And it was like, I'm going to drop that pain like a hot potato because that is a gorgeous future.
Wow.
And having that environment with your children too, where where you're always speaking life over them. You're seeing them, good morning, handsome. Good morning. You're so full of courage. Like you're just looking for constant ways to speak into existence their full
So good.
expression.
Yeah.
And doing that where it's Proverbs, it says, I think it's Proverbs 14:2, a foolish woman tears her house down with her own hands, but a righteous woman has like the tongue of life. I'm botching it, but it's something to that effect, speaks life. So that ability to speak life is the ability to make your house flourish.
Yes.
And I love that.
Eric, you are never going to be able to top that.
That
was really good.
That is for sure. For culture of peace, I feel like, we're chosen in Christ. It's a royal priesthood, and it's not overstepping to think of the queen and king roles, and I think, the noble king's role is to establish the boundaries and borders. And so I think part of what really makes a family culture exude peace is that everyone is clear about the rules and the boundaries and borders.
Oh, that's good.
And one in particular bears a lot of fruit, not talking over each other.
Yeah, that's good.
Wow.
In fact, I'll tell a funny story about this one in particular. I don't know if Rachel was talking in the kitchen or another one of our sons was talking, but our youngest boy comes in the middle of the talking and starts talking over.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, Miles, hold on. Miles, who's talking? To draw his attention to one of our other boys or to Rachel, he's going to say, Rachel's talking. Yeah. Okay, now I realize that, I'll be quiet and wait. And so I was like, Miles, who's talking? And he says, I'm talking.
Oh, of course. Of course he is.
Isn't that all of us?
Yes.
Right. And it's
all I hear is
he,
myself.
Exactly. It's not that he was wrong. It's that he was unaware. And I think a lot of times the energy around the gotcha energy or the judgment energy is assuming that the person is really fully aware of all the possible choices and they're choosing a bad one and we got to teach them a lesson.
Oh, yeah.
When often it is unaware.
Yep.
It didn't even dawn on them. And so when we handle that correction with some grace, but also, and this is tough, really consistently. That's the thing. If the rules feel like they change or the rules don't apply to me, or there's any kind of like fluff around that, then I feel like that just sows the seeds of discord.
Wow.
So if you have to make your bed before you come down for breakfast, or you have to do this thing like that, it's like, you have to do that. And I feel like, again, part of that culture of peace is if I know it's expected of me, it's the same with employees, right? It's the same. Yep. If I know it's expected of me and it is inspected, then I'm with the program.
Yeah.
Even if I don't love whatever the thing is. I got to go scoop the dog's poop in the yard. And I really don't love that. But you know what? Every day at 4:00, it's time to go up and clean it after the dog. Good job. And then praising the process. You know, because sometimes the outcome, the product isn't going to be so great, especially raising kids and even with each other where they're trying a new skill. And it was like, hey, honey, I'm really working on listening better. And how did I do? And maybe her internal conversation is like, oh, you're still so terrible at that. But if she's able to go, I really see how hard you're trying. That praise of the process and good boundaries, I really think is a really important 2 items.
I love that.
So good.
Okay. So this is so good. How to establish a healthy marriage culture. This is great. Okay. Now, this isn't going to be the last time we're going to have you. Listen, this is the second time. There's third, fourth, fifth, sixth time we're going to have you guys on here.
Awesome.
But before we let you go, Tori has been doing something awesome at the end of our podcast, talking about
Food. Yes. And so I am so curious to ask you, Rachel, what is one of your favorite meals for your family that you kind of eat on the regular and has been a success? I think all of us moms and women are always looking for ideas. So,
Absolutely. Well, with a house full of men that love red meat, a famous and popular recipe in our household is buffalo tacos. So I like to get
tacos.
Siete brand. There's like a grain-free cassava, like taco shell, and then we saute ground buffalo with just a little seasoning. It's just a little bit different than beef.
Okay.
And then I'll do like a lot of guacamole, and then I like to roast diced sweet potato, which is really nice. And plus it's really beautiful because you have like the green and the bright orange.
Yes.
And then maybe you have some fresh sweet corn. That's really nice. Even if it's frozen, that works just fine. And then, you know, your olives, maybe some sour cream or goat cheese.
Okay.
But it's really colorful. I always try and get like something that looks pretty.
Yum.
And then if someone is not feeling the meat, you know, they can just fill it as they like. But I find it's a real crowd pleaser. And it really only takes like 20 minutes.
Okay. That is awesome. How do you season the buffalo?
Well, I like to use Spike seasoning. So I'll do a little bit of olive oil and Spike, which is kind of like a healthy version of like Lowry seasoning salt. No MSG.
Okay.
So Spike is really nice. Sometimes we also do balsamic. And there's a balsamic we get that is by a brand called Costa Rica, which is amazing.
So good.
And they have a fig balsamic.
Yeah.
And that little bit of fig. Or even chocolate.
So it's not really like a Mexican flavor?
It's not.
Okay.
I mean, that would be delicious. Occasionally, I mean, very occasionally, I'll do like an enchilada sauce or something, but it's generally like more neutral.
Okay.
Specifically Mexican. Yeah.
Yum. Okay. We're going to try it, babe.
Oh, I'm in. And I'm sitting here looking at a plate full of sourdough bread that Tori made and has some nice dipping sauce.
Still trying to perfect it, but
chili flakes and
it's tasting good. It's just a little too dense.
It is.
I
like it.
I think I should try it again. To be
okay.
sure.
You tell me, Eric, after you try a few more bites.
Hey, thank you guys for spending time with us. We're going to do it again. But in the meantime, thank you for listening. And don't forget to rate, review, subscribe. If you need help with your marriage, we have a coaching program at beautyandbattle.com. Maybe one of these days we get Eric and Rachel to be two of our coaches. You guys would be awesome.
They would be awesome.
Hey, maybe you could just coach us. And by the way, Rachel said that she was in a house full of men. We said on the last podcast, they have 6 boys and 1 husband. So there's a lot of testosterone in that house. That's why she wants to make the meals all pretty.
I feel like that gives you so much credibility.
And the meals are so pretty and all this. Wow. She's got to bring that estrogen into the house.
True.
Balance it out.
So thanks for hanging out with us. Until next time, I don't really have a sign off, but whatever. We love you.
Benham out.
Benham out. Peace out.
See you guys.
See ya.